Welcome into Magical You Show. I am excited about this show. If you guys haven't already heard, the Blood Moon Eclipse is coming up actually tomorrow, so we're filming this a little bit late. 3-3 on 333. So I am going to be bringing Rhonda on here a minute. She's a numerologist, among many other things. But before we started, I'm excited to share. If you guys might have heard me before talk about, I know many of you have already bought the pendants, but I wanted to share. Uh, just like probably a month ago, I started talking about how awesome it would be if there was something to help us with Wi-Fi, with EMFs, with chemtrails, help up our frequency, because I've been seeing this not only in people affecting their emotional and physical health. I've been seeing this in my pets because I'm a pet psychic. So I'm so excited. I finally got my pendants and I have an amazing designer, and this is the root chakra. So I have the root chakra. There's many different ones to choose from, but these all are on my website, vickie-miller.com. And they're infused with 428, 523. They have crystals and orgone, and they're all here to protect us and also raise the frequency. And I'm obsessed because mine feels, I haven't been able to take off my root chakra one yet. They do come, I only have a couple here though. They do come, like here's a throat chakra. And it's a funny story about the throat chakra. When I was talking to my designer, I just called her and I started coughing like crazy on the phone. I'm like, what's wrong with your throat chakra? She's like, nothing. She sends me a picture and she literally had the throat chakra pendant in her hand. And I was like, oh my God, I need that. I'm feeling that. They come in moons and hearts. These are great for pet tags. So they have pet tags too for the pets, even horses and stuff, and stars, a whole bunch of different ones. I have a really cool one that I don't have yet, but it's the horse, the fire horse is coming to me, hopefully today. All of them, you can go check them out on vickie-miller.com, and they come in different ones. And you can also message me if you want like me to channel and see which one, if you're only wanting to start with one or a couple, see which one that I can tune into and tell you that. Okay, so those are now live on my website, vickie-miller.com, help you and your pets. Okay, and we also have men ones too. Well, men ones that maybe men are more simple that want to use too. So I'm so excited here. We are going to be bringing on Rhonda. She is a numerologist. Just had her on last month. And before I introduce her here, many of you guys know, you're going to hear a whole different Rhonda because she was just on my show. We were talking about the fire horse, the power of the fire horse, and how this year the fire horse is going to affect your heart. And we both just said that. I channeled, it's really important. She said the same thing. Well, she had some heart issues show up for her, and I'm so happy she just came out of the hospital. A whole different person, which we're going to talk about this later in the show. On her healing is miracle, like seriously miracle. I didn't know she was going to make it over the night. So we will talk about that later in the show, and the power of energy healing and some stuff there with numerology and just a whole bunch of good stuff. So you want to stay to the end of the show to hear all about that. So welcome in, Rhonda.
Hey, thank you so much, Vickie, and thank you for being a part of that healing journey.
You sound and look so different.
Yeah,
And
anybody
I
that's
think all the listeners are going to hear it too. I think the listeners that saw you, we just did the show, like 3 weeks ago. And then she seriously, I didn't know she was going to make it overnight. Like I told her real fast, the first part of the story is we were talking about her heart. She had some heart issues. I think you have heart failure.
Yeah, congestive heart failure, but I was in lung, kidney, and heart failure by the time I ended up at the hospital, and had CO2 poisoning because all of the fluid and everything had backed up. I didn't even know that was such a thing, but they told me that my CO2 was so high, it was 138, and it should be less than 30, that it was the highest I'd ever seen on anybody alive. And just to give a little sneak peek that you were not wrong. I mean, we'll share later in a story or whatever that I heard my dad, and he sent me back. They lost me twice. They did. And
I told her, I said, you need to go to the hospital now, or something. You're gonna die.
And that's what sent me, because I think I shared with you, like, well, I don't know if I'm that sick. Like, I'm afraid they'll charge me the extra $200 for going to the emergency room after hours. And you're like, you have to go. And so I told everybody that listened to me, I'm like, my psychic, my friend who's an intuitive healer, I believe it. I'm going to go. And then I had no idea. I mean,
You were bad.
yeah, I was. I mean, and I had no idea how bad I was and how it had progressed. And so, and you even said to me, you said, you just did this whole thing about the fire horse, like get yourself to the ER. So
Yes.
thank you again. And thank you to all your students and people that you knew that sent me. I would not have made it. I would not. I know.
No, and we'll talk about that, the miracle of energy healings, and yeah, and thank you to my students too. We'll talk more about that too later. Okay, so let's get into the eclipse. It's on 3:33 in the morning. Like, why? First of all, I'm like, how? How does that all happen? And I don't know if you know that, but I know you know the numbers and what this all means. And I have a 33, and my last name is 33, master number. So I definitely want to hear about this.
So right now, we're in the universal year one for everybody on the planet. And the number 33 deals with the ascended masters, especially when you see 333. It means, especially 333, the ascended masters have been called in. It's an angel number, but it's not angels. It's, Buddha, Mother Mary, Mary Magdalene, Jesus, Muhammad, whoever it is ascended masters. So that's a little different frequency because it's again, it's a master number, but it's the masters now that are sort of your guides that are leading you and helping you to move forward. So that energy with that and is one of the things that's going to help us. But the eclipse is also about clearing and starting and beginning anew. Again, year one, clearing, beginning anew. So now all of a sudden we're going to go into this thing, and actually the eclipse date is not only the 3rd of March. On March is a third month, so 3-3, but it's also a universal year one. So the actual code is for the day 331. Well, like when you want the angels, you dial, 411 or whatever. So when you need help with the ascended masters, you call 133 or 331, whatever. So that's going to be a day that you're going to get help. Then combine that with this eclipse. It's the clearing. It's the clearing and the universal year one. But you're going to see things at a master level because 33 deals also with forgiveness, compassion, kindness. And again, those could be things just towards yourself, but you're going to have those kinds of things that are going to happen. But it is the highest charge on the planet. Jesus ascended when he was crucified and ascended when he was 33. We have 33 vertebrae in our spine. And so all of this is just one of those things that's kind of like the tree of life. All of that kind of superimposes over the spine. So it's a really powerful healing number. It's a sacred number, and it's a really strong energy number. Now, again, everybody will be like, is that good or bad? Oh, I'm a 5. Is that good or bad? Like, there's no good or bad. It's how you assign the charge. So you're going to see a lot of basically shit hit the fan tomorrow, or whenever you're seeing this. So it's kind of important to realize it's time for you to really start new things and have the help with the eclipse. So it was divinely guided. I mean, there's no doubt in mind that somebody out there in the cosmos said, okay, let's give them eclipse at 3:33 a.m. on 331 and let's see where they go with it. So, and it's going to affect the world. I don't know if you want me to go into that or you want me to talk about how it's going to affect
Absolutely.
you.
I mean, we have the war that's starting. We have, the shedding of the rest of the systems. Absolutely.
So if you look at the war, all of this stuff is happening in the 33rd parallel. All of that stuff with
I was
Iran and
wondering
Iraq.
about that. Okay, so let's talk. People are new. They don't understand the parallels in the 33. I do, but they don't. So let's refresh. What does that mean?
So there's latitude and longitude signs throughout the globe or the planet or whatever, and each one of them has they'll say like you live in the 34th parallel or you live in the 33rd latitude, 42 longitude, like those kinds of things, and they're more of a map kind of thing. But myself, what I do is of course the numbers speak to me. That's how my guides reach me, and so I know that by looking at those latitude, where you live affects your health, it affects your career, it affects whatever. So the Civil War was started in the 33rd parallel. The assassinations of both the Kennedy brothers was in the 33rd parallel. There's most of the military bases of the U.S. around the world are in the 33rd parallel.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's kind of like a portal. And then we also have the 33rd parallel below the globe, like below the equator, that I don't focus on as much because that I'm in the northern hemisphere, but it's really intense. So when we see that and back, all of this thing that happened with the losing of the women's right and Roe versus Wade and all of these things, those states that started changing women's rights started in that 33rd parallel, and it runs like in the U.S. from Los Angeles down to San Diego, and it has that length about all the way across the United States. So it's going to hit all of those states all the way across, like Yuma, Arizona. It's going to go through parts of Texas, like Dallas area. It's going to go through parts of Georgia, then on out to, it's going to end over around the Myrtle Beach area is where it's going to come out on the other side.
So
South
when
Carolina.
say that. So, I do feel that there's going to be some major eruptions of earthquakes and volcanoes. Ring of Fire, hello, it's called the Ring of Fire. The Ring of Fire is the West Coast and stuff. And in California, LA, because I used to live in Santa Barbara over there. So, what does that mean, like when you say it's going to be around those parts? Because I know those people are going to be asking.
And so I see things because of the fire sign. I see things that are going to be intense. Like everything's going to be intense. So I think there's going to be an uptake in ice raids, all those kinds of things. There might be an upcase where some of those protests turn to riots. There could be things like you said, volcano eruptions, earthquakes, anything to do with that, anything to do with fire. Maybe wildfires could start and spread across. But intensity is going to heat up. So everybody's emotions are going to run super high during
Yeah.
this eclipse. Master numbers like you and I and anybody who has a 33, it's going to be supercharged. And we get to choose, we can talk a little bit about that, but we can choose how we use that energy. But they're going to see all of these things. You also might see where things are going to get started that are, make like maybe some things like with all this war stuff going on. Now, because of Mercury retrograde, it will have to be revisited after March 20th. But you're going to see, because this 33 parallel goes over through Iran and Iraq and Libya and Japan and Chile. I mean, it does,
I
it goes
didn't
all the way
know
around the
that.
globe. So it's going to intensify because 33 is the highest charge on the planet. It's the highest numerical frequency. The Masons have a 33, levels. And so you're going to see all of those areas. You're going to see more bombing, more eruption, maybe riots over in Iran and Iraq or whatever. And Israel is right on the cusp. It's a 34, but it also has the latitude, but the longitude is right close to the 33 too. So that's why it kind of goes back and forth, and it's in the 34th parallel, but just barely the 34th parallel, which is about spirituality, because 3 plus 4 is 7. So that's why there's all of this
Oh.
religious stuff that comes out of from them. And so theirs is more of a different kind of attack than the coming like back with Iran and those kinds of things. But you're going to see, because tempers are going to flare, emotions are going to flare. You're going to suddenly feel like you're bursting into tears for no reason. And then you're going to feel like people maybe are like, well, they don't have very long fuse. And so you're going to see people that are do that.
So maybe more shootings, more riots, when people
Yes.
lose it, there's probably going to be, so maybe it's a good day not to be in crowds or
Right.
around people, right?
Right.
I have a question too about the 33, because I do know that about the parallel and stuff. And I remember, especially me, this was before you told me about the many years ago. And I was always drawn to places. I actually lived in places that were 33 that I didn't even know I was there. And like one of them that I was drawn to was Lake Tahoe, Montecito. I lived in Montecito, which was at 33. So my question is with this, with the 33 in your state, it's going to be there. And I'm wondering too with Georgia, like, I'm wondering if like these places that are around 33, are they usually, like you said, LA, obviously that's a major city. Are they usually major cities? So what I wanted to know, like, what is the Georgia one? Is it near Atlanta then? I'm thinking like a
I
major
think it's a
city
little
there,
south of there. Like
like
it
Macon,
goes through
Kelly.
like Little Rock, Arkansas, and then it kind of cuts across. So I think it's south of Atlanta, because I think Atlanta is probably a 34. And see, I
Okay, I
believe
was
that
wondering about that.
you should choose where you live based on your own personal numbers and charts, and also your occupation. So I've told you like 33 and 34 are good for you because you have the 33 vibration. And if you don't have a master number, you can't, it's too intense for you to live in that 33 vibration. You can't cope with it. Like there'll be more mental illness. Like people just, it's too high of a frequency. They can't
Oh
stifle it.
yeah. Yeah, so if you don't have the master number, you're saying, and you try to, because it's a big energy, right? And
It
so,
is.
and I feel I'm the opposite. I feel since I
It
do
is.
have this big energy, I will like dry up and become super bored and dry if I don't, because I'm drawn to earthquake lines. I'm drawn to like energy, like
Mhm.
power energy. And so that's the 33. So that's a good thing to tell people because yeah, where you live is everything. And I could tell, yeah, I even consulted with Rhonda here. I moved 23 times. So I've been consulted with all of it. But when I was in California, which is the West Coast versus the East Coast, just total different energies for me. And how, the West Coast, when I was there, it was number 7 in the spirituality. And then I moved back to Florida, which is 11, a master number 11. And so, yeah, the difference, I can tell totally the different energies. And I think we all also kind of out, I was drawn, I'm wondering this, I'm going to ask you about that because I was drawn before. I mean, I've been through all the fires in California, I've been through mudslides. I was drawn to that, power energy. And then I moved back to Florida and now I've gone through hurricanes, but now I'm wanting more peace and not that abruption energy. So I'm wondering if you go through different times in your life too, where you're yearning for a different energy to, I've already been through that powerful grid. Not saying I don't want still power, but I don't want the abruption of power grids.
So first, let me address that because you're a 33, you thrive in the 33 vibration. Those are the people who need to live there. And it doesn't have to be the 33rd parallel. It could be that your state adds up to a 33, or it could be that your house adds up to a 33.
That's
Those
great
kinds
to
of
know.
things. And when you're an 11, 22, or 33, the three master numbers, you can survive those master number vibrations much easier than the people who did that. Now, again, this doesn't mean you're superior. It just means your life path, that your soul choose a different path to follow and different
Right.
lessons to learn. But you will thrive in those areas, and that's where you can also help people with those kinds of things. And before I forget, I just want to mention that this eclipse and this 333 and all these numbers is definitely affecting your life path, and it's calling you forward. There's an opportunity to quantum jump. It's an opportunity to do what your soul wants you to do and be called here. So no matter what your numbers are, that's what this eclipse is about, and that's why it's brought that energy in. So then the second part of your question was about you, how you've switched, you've done that. There's a couple of different things that could have happened. One is that you had lessons in your soul, in your blueprint, right, that you wanted to learn, that your soul wanted to learn. And then we also have quadrants in our blueprint that tells you like what you should do during these particular years of your age. So up to a certain age you do this, and it's different for everybody. It's not the same for me as you. And so you then would have to experience these first things, like maybe the first 25 years of your life, and you'd be drawn then to an energy or a vibrational master, number kind of thing that will help you learn those lessons or will give you the challenges that you need to fulfill your contract. So that will happen. And then you also, you had kids. So you had a soul team, sort of
A
like you
lot.
came here.
I have five.
You came here. And I just have to mention really quickly here, I've never told Vickie this, but she loves fives, okay? And Vickie's a five.
I
And of
do.
course, she's moved 23 times, which is a five. So, there it is again. So, but so when you your last name, and you and I've discussed this, is what you've signed up with as your soul group to help each other in those life lessons. So those children then came into your life with different, with your last name, different than you were born with, Miller. And so it's part of maybe their soul learning also that you were located in a particular state or area during that to help them with their soul growth, soul
Yes.
evolution, and life path. So that has to do with it. And you did, but you also, some of the places you lived in California were 34, which was very necessary because that's a number of spirituality. And I find a lot of people who do, medium work, psychic work, healing work, whatever, function really well in anything that's the 34 because 3 plus 4 is 7. And it has the ascended master number plus the angel number, so it really works well, for their guides. So it's a little comforting thing. So you kind of flipped back and forth between that 34 and 33, and probably if you went back in retrospection, you can see how, oh yeah, this is when I was doing master things like writing books and doing such and such, and then 34 is when I was doing more healings, more one-on-ones, you see. So
Right.
and then moving to Florida, you then moved to 11, which of course is a master number. And then you also, I believe, and I know you've moved a few times, so I'm not up to date, okay? But
Sarah.
I kind of think you're in the 29th parallel where you're
Probably.
living, which is 2 plus 9, which is an 11, you see. So with that
Mm.
as well. And so, you had this spirituality in California of the 7 because it's a 7 state, and then you were in the 34th parallel, which is about spirituality and healing and all of that. And then you were like, let me kick it up a notch. I'm going to move from Ojai. I'm going to move to Monticello or whatever, which is a 33.
Montana, yeah.
Okay, and then it's going to be a different kind of healing that I'm doing. I'm going to do more writing or this or that or whatever. And then you're like, okay, I kind of need a break. I need a change. I'm tired of all of this stuff that's going on, the energy that's going on out here. I'm going to go be back to Florida, which is this 11 vibration. You pick the 11 latitude, longitude, whatever, which one it is that you have. And then it's more about this teaching. So the 11 is about teaching. See, the 33 isn't about teaching, and the 34 isn't about teaching. The 11 is
Wow.
about teaching, and the 22 is about teaching. So you have and it's about teaching spiritual things. Doesn't mean you have to stand in front of a classroom. It could just be this conversation that you and I are having, right?
Right.
So do you see then, and I know because I've known you since 2011. We met on that Hay House cruise. And
Right.
so, and there it was an 11. See, we met in 11. So, it it uh, it has to do with you have transitioned. You were doing more healings and those kinds of things, and writing or whatever. And then when you moved to Florida, that's when you really I started seeing that you do more teaching. You
My
started to
school,
paint.
Magical University. Yeah, I brought it
Exactly.
back to life.
See,
Yeah.
so that's where that happens with how it can affect you. We don't even realize subconsciously how this all affects us because it
Right.
does. Whether you believe it or not, it does. And so that helped you. And then we also worked on your last name. We switched you from one that meant
Yes.
hard work and lessons of
Yeah.
structure to
My
33,
last ex-husband's name was hard work, and I'm like, oh my God, was it hard work?
yeah,
15 years of hard work.
yep,
So yeah, when I took back my maiden name, which made a huge difference. So people
yes.
don't realize, and I was telling them like your maiden name or name. Or another thing I noticed too with my clients is if they have two different names, they use one for work and one, their married name. I'm like, that is like dividing you. You gotta yeah, I've noticed that too.
So then you went from being this, when you were Emmanuel in California, you went from being this person who did healing work and you also did some stuff but you primarily did because of the 7 vibration and the 34. I believe Ojai is a 34. And so, and that's kind of when we picked up again after the cruise, right? I think that's when we connected during the
Yeah,
pandemic.
yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so there it was all about this spiritual thing, but it was you really having to have a lot of structure, details. It was hard work. There was, and not just with your work,
Yes,
but
there was.
right, right.
Well, it was
And
very financially expensive too. I mean, California's ridiculous. I mean, I
yes.
lived in Santa Barbara and then I lived in
Yep.
these nice places. And of course, yeah, it was a lot.
And then when you moved to Florida, that's when you changed your name. So now you became this high vibration that was teaching. But as a
Yeah.
manual, you might have wanted to teach, but it would be hard to get it off the ground because it was all about you. You were kind of, when you have a 4 vibration, you're very dependable, loyal, trustworthy, integrity, but you are the grunt person. Everybody comes to you to do all of the detail stuff, right? So
Right.
then when you move to Florida, then you raise that vibration to their 33, the 11, all of those kinds of things. And it just opened a bunch of different doors for that. So,
Yes, for sure. For sure. No, you're exactly right. And so I would definitely, if you, these are great questions in your own life for Rhonda, because I do before I move, I'm looking at purchasing a house and just different addresses and even my book names. I have books coming out. And so I always run numbers by Rhonda. So it's great for your business and everything. And I can go through, my own life. I have gone through that. And after you tell me things too, it made sense because I was like, oh, I mean, I already moved to the 33, like Santa Barbara, like the places I was drawn to. I just think it's a natural, whatever you're drawn to. You're obviously there's a reason behind it. You just might not know it. But it also helps too. With there was this house just recently I was looking at purchasing and up in northern Georgia, and I called Rhonda, and I already had my like I was like it wasn't really it was like I loved it, but it wasn't like, when you walk in a house, you're gonna be like, oh, this is it. So yeah, she helped me with that just by the number of the address. And so I would highly recommend all that for sure for people too, if you're wanting to reach out to Rhonda, because she will definitely help you. And so I have a question with that too, then with the, because this might help a lot of other people too, especially because I'm in Florida. So a lot of Florida people here are snowbirds. So we come back and forth. So they live up north and they come down here. And I'm wanting to do the same thing. I'm thinking I want a beach house and a mountain house. And so you go back and forth. So is that something too that, I mean, what is that? Numerologies.
so I don't like, I'm not going to do specific numbers because I don't know specifically
No, I'm
what
just
the numbers
saying
are
though,
going to be.
like
But
what if you divide like that, then is it?
so here's what might happen. You might go up to one parallel that would be good for you to do retreat, rewriting, just sort of
That's
like
actually what I want. I want my hermit house. Like I just go and write.
but it also might be the opposite. It might be something where you go and all of a sudden you're wanting to do something that's not so introspective. I mean, it could be that you want other activities, other excitement. So let's just
Mm.
pick, like for instance, if you went back to a latitude or a longitude that was a 5, just generically speaking. That might be like, oh, I want to do things that are more that I can travel more and do more, and all of those kinds of things. And so during that time, whether it's winter or summer or whatever, that would affect you as to what you got to do. Whereas then, so when you go back and forth, there's nothing wrong. Again, it's what the charge we assign to it, but just expect that your desires, energy, wants, needs, and urges are going to be different, and they're going to be based on what that vibration is, not only of the latitude, longitude, the vibration of the state, but the vibration of your house number where you live, and also that street address and all of those kinds of things. The city, all of those things are going to do it. So you might find if you're going one place or the other, like, I just more comfortable just sitting here on my butt, just watching the reruns of something, and then maybe going to shop at the mall or something. And I'm always that way when I'm here. But then you might be like, when I go to my other place, I just can't stop. Like, I want to go everywhere. I want to do everything.
Mhm.
And again, each number has a different vibration and a different gift and a different lesson. So you will notice it, or you should notice it, unless for some happenstance they're almost identical. Do you know what I mean? Like
Right,
you could be
right.
living in Florida in the 11th parallel, and then go to a city that has a 7 vibration, or you could be living in a 7th vibration state and live in a house that has an 11 vibration. Like you could reverse it. Like you may not even know you're doing it. Like you may balancing
Right,
yourself out.
right.
Did I make that clearly? I feel like I'm still a
Mhm.
little foggy
Yeah.
from the CO2 poisoning, so I don't know if I
No, no, no,
articulated that
no,
very
no.
well.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Total sense. And I think people are going to realize, like, especially when they know their number, and diving deep into your number. And, one other thing for the numbers, let people know too, you have your name number, you have a life path number, and there's different numbers that you have,
There's
right, in your,
22 different
yeah.
numbers in
Okay.
your
And
blueprint.
okay. And then, so let's also get back to this eclipse then, because it's going to change the whole world. It's going to
It
change the
is.
money. What,
Yes.
so, monetary system, money system, yeah, anything else that we need to know with this?
I don't feel like the eclipse itself is going to change the money system because there's no 8 involved. Now, you might
Okay.
see it change it on the 8th of March because it'll be an
Mm.
8-day. Okay. So that would do that. The 8 is going to have to be involved for there to be some kind of money thing. And 3, 4, it could happen on the
But
4th of
let's
March.
say, is that like stock? I mean, already we've been seeing the stocks take a crap too.
Okay. So
Like it could be things like that.
the 4th might happen because 3 plus 4 is 7 plus a 1 universal year is 8. So you might see the eclipse happen on the 3rd, and that's when everything's going to change on the 4th. So
Right.
anything that adds up to
Okay.
an 8, that's when you're going to see it, but you're not going to see it necessarily. The 33 is going to be more about healing and family. Family things are going
Okay.
to manifest with that. But yeah, everything is going to change. All of these conflicts are going to escalate. I mean, I just feel really strongly about that. And
Yeah.
that's not just
Especially going
in
into
the numbers.
Aries. We're going into
We're
Aries
going
too.
into Aries, which is the war sign. Aries is
Hmm.
the god of war. So all of that is, I just see this, and then the fire sign with the horse, the fire horse. All of those are going to escalate, the tempers and everything too. So the eclipse is kind of like the way I interpret it, and I'm a water sign, so I do everything with water. So in my mind, I see that we've had this fire stuff going with this fire horse and all this stuff. The eclipse is going to kind of come, and because of the eclipse with the moon, it's a lunar eclipse, and moon rules Pisces and Neptune, which is a water god. We're going to see that the eclipse is going to kind of like coming and putting out the fire, just like coming and putting out the fire, cleaning away all that debris and all that kind of stuff so that you can start
Cleansing.
again. It's
It
a
feels very
cleansing.
cleansing.
It
Yeah.
does. And then you're going to go back. Then we're going to see when we switch into Aries, March 21st, then you're going to see that fire come back because we'll still be in Pisces. See, that's the other thing is that we're also in the sign of Pisces,
Mhm.
another water sign, till March 20th. So that's kind of how I feel it. But
And
I'm a
March
water sign.
20th is a spring solstice
Yeah,
too. So, it's equinox, spring equinox.
yeah,
So, yeah, with all of this though, I mean, so I feel this eclipse is very cleansing.
it
And
is.
sometimes you do have to have war to get change. You have to have that implemented. My only concern is, like you said, with the people going crazy.
Yeah, I think that the intensity will be that. I really do, that you're going to see, again, people's tempers are going to be short. And also, I felt before we came on, I kind of did like a little thing like, okay, because you had told me, just ask your guides. It was like, and sometimes, we're so close to the forest, we can't see the trees. I'm like, well, duh. And so I asked my guys, and it said that just reiterate to the people that all of us that are healers, that and all of us that are master numbers, we are the ones who are being asked to hold that protective energy for everybody else on the planet to get through this eclipse, because that's kind of like, the light worker kind of thing, that we then can be the ones that are stabilized, because we're the only ones who are going to be able to handle that intensity that's coming. So just know that when the store clerk is really bitchy at you, take a breath and go, it's the eclipse, just kind of like, it's Mercury retrograde, it's the eclipse. So you might have things that are dealing with family issues, like I said, so just try to overlook it. And again, that 33 is all about compassion and just sort of like the love, that unconditional love thing. So you definitely have to kind of take that, but just know. So that was what I was told, is that we are being asked to help everybody to get through this thing, and just understand that we can, we can vibrationally hold it. It doesn't mean that we're out holding up a sign, or whatever. Like, we can just sit,
Right.
meditate, because this is a good time for meditating or journaling or whatever, that we can just sit and ask for, this sort of like peace, this cleansing, this water to come through and get everything sort of washed away, so that we can get prepared for what's coming March 21st and thereon. So, because it's going to,
So I'm going to piggy bank off that, because I woke up this morning with my guides, and my guides tell me to hold energy. How much energy can you hold to share with people, to move it into abundance? So in other words, when we manifest, we have to be able to hold it. We have to be able to hold that money, that joy, that love, that, if you're mean to yourself, you're unkind to yourself, you're not holding self-love, right? So it's even something as simple as that, is start being kinder, more gentle to yourself, and open up space to hold. And back to the releasing. So let the cleansing come in and cleanse out both tangible items, but also mentally and energetic stuff leave your life too. So you can hold more things, because you can't hold space for more. Your energy field being out and expanded is how you're attracting more. And if you're all plugged up, with all of this misery and pain and negativity or debt,
fear,
even, yeah,
fear.
you can't open up, right? So I heard just to like change it to open up space, to really hold the space. So it all starts with you. So the kindness and love and generosity to yourself, then that will ripple out, and then it'll ripple out to everybody else too.
And to kind of feed on that, there's been so much horrible things that we've been doing to other people and things. Just the whole political
The
climate, and how
division.
everything is just, yeah, that you expect them to be like, you always say, well, they should do unto others as they have them do unto themselves. And that kind of made me think about, how much must they despise themselves? Like, maybe they are treating other people the way that they would treat themselves. You know what I mean? Like, with loathing and, whatever. So that's another point for reflection
That
too.
is, that is. I was married to narcissists. As much as they are mean to you and they do this stuff to you, they're all on themselves. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's their own stuff. So yeah, I feel like when people are going to be projecting their stress or whatever's going on, they're projecting their own stuff always. So just don't take it. Who cares? Just don't take it don't take it being personal. This is time not to be personal.
And also, I want to reiterate too that the time of day has a lot to do with your energy and stuff too. And that goes into Chinese medicine, but also like tomorrow at 3:33 in the morning, 3:33 in the afternoon, at 1:33, at 3:31, at 3:13, like all of those numbers, because those are the energies of tomorrow. Expect like, so like, let's just say you went through the drive-through and then somebody was a bitch and you didn't get your coffee and you didn't get, like, oh my God, I don't want to go back through. I'll just forget it. You'll be like, 3:13. Yep, that was it. So pay attention. I always want to encourage people, pay attention, because it's there if you look for the signs. But those are going to be supercharged because of the date and the time and all of those kinds of things. So,
Do you know what I just booked? I just realized. I asked my massage guy that does an hour and a half. That's amazing. I said, "Do you have anything tomorrow?" I'm having a massage at 3:30 p.m.
yep, yep,
Isn't that awesome?
yeah,
On
it
three
is.
three.
Yeah,
Yeah, I was like, I want to cleanse this stuff out on me, but I just realized it was he said either 1:30 or 3:30, and I chose 3:30. Of course, I chose 3:30 because it's
yep,
33.
yep,
Yeah,
exactly.
I love
Yep.
that. All right. So now we're going to talk about so I love that about the eclipse and all this stuff is coming up. And then March, any other big dates? I mean, we have March 20th, which is the spring equinox. Anything else about March that we should be what about well, I guess there's no 3 through 3. So any other thing that shows up in March?
Okay, so first of all, I just have to say, March 20th is my birthday.
Oh, happy
So,
birthday. Oh, you're kind of a cusper.
Well, I am a cusper. Yeah, I'm right on the cusp of Aries and Pisces, and born right
Ah,
down to the minute. And then, of course, my soul would have me be born on an equinox, right? And
right.
I was due on April 1st. And years ago, when I, was a youngster, I was in a pageant and I won first runner up. But anyway, I said in my little pageant that I was born, I was in high school. It was for Des Moines County Fair Queen. Anyway, I said I was my birth because you had to tell your birth date. And so I said my birthday, I was due on my April 1st, but I fooled everybody and came 2 weeks early. So, again, like my life path, my soul picked for me to be born on an equinox, right? I had to be born on an equinox. So, let me just grab here really quickly because I have my little handy dandy calendar that I'm going to be sure that I cover all the dates that so in March we are going to have high energy days on the 1st, the 3rd, the 10th, the 11th, the 19th, the 21st, the 28th, and the 30th. So those are going to be all power intense days because they add up to master like supercharged days because like 321 is 2 plus 1 is 3. So that would be 331 would be the code for the day too. So and I'll just take, can I take just a little minute to show that like I have
Yeah.
it designed where you can, now I'm just showing you June because my friend was able, I don't know if you can see it, she was able to
Yes.
do a reverse thing where you can kind of see. Now this is one for June. I didn't do the one for March, but it's a calendar that comes with like it's spiral, and then
Oh, pretty cool.
I go through like the numbers for the month of June and like the key points, and then I also take it and I give you like what are those high energy days. But each day on here, then I've changed the numerical. I've converted the numerical vibration of the date to what the frequency would be, but you don't have to know. Like you said, a lot of people are like, well, what does 7 mean? Well, you know what? You don't have to know because I put down here, it's going to mean something about spirituality. Like I've converted the date. So
Oh,
for
awesome.
March,
And they can get these calendars where?
on my website, you can get them on the
On your
website.
website. Okay. We'll be
So
posting that underneath the show here for sure.
sure. And so like, for instance, and I did this calendar last fall, to get it ready. So I'm laughing. I'm looking that on on Tuesday, March the 3rd, I have total lunar eclipse, and then I put pray underneath. And at the time, I didn't realize it was at 3:33, and all. So everybody
Wow.
tomorrow, yeah, everybody tomorrow pray. And then like I have one coming up for like there's another one that's like the 27th of March. I'm telling you that the energy vibration numerically is karma from the past will come up, and that's the other thing that I'm seeing with this
Does
eclipse.
that Dharma too? Because I have good karma going back, so I'm thinking.
Yeah, it's Dharma too, but
Okay.
it's also and then I also include the eclipses in the changes in the zodiac signs and the Chinese medicine things. Like all of this is a metaphysical calendar. It's not just numbers, but like I have down here too, like time for negotiation on the 11th of March. So it just kind of helps you to understand what the energy is of each day. But again, those charged days are days that are going to work to manifest, and each month it's different. It's not the same every day. Like the first of the month, yeah, it's a one,
Right.
but like, so those are, again, I'll give it, kind of briefly for people. Anything that's going to have a combination of threes and ones is going to be a charge date for March. So again, the 1st, the 3rd, definitely, the 10th, the 11th, because see, like the 11th would be March 3rd, the 3rd month, 3, the 11th day, which is 1 1 in a one universal year. So it's going to be
Wow.
3 1 1 1. And so
Okay.
you're going to have those
Awesome.
kinds of things. So yeah, so you're gonna want to do that. That they're going to have that in the charge dates. So the 1st, the 3rd, the 10th, 11th, 19th, 21st, 28th, and 30th are all days to really know that there's going to be something power happen. And like one of them is right after that equinox. It's March 21st that I have
Right.
on here for the power day. But those are all days that you can manifest, watch your thoughts, and again, they're going to be supercharged dates with that too. So I'm a little freaked out by myself that 4 months ago, before I knew that there was this eclipse thing in 333, that I put pray, that I put pray.
Yeah.
I'm like,
So
I'm like,
I know I'm thinking, should we know something? No, I do feel it is. I do feel it's, well, I feel it's your prayers are being heard too. I feel it's just knowing and protect, knowing that your prayers are being heard too.
but I don't mean it in a bad way. I'm like, I was that far intuitive to it, that it was about prayer. That I said, we all need to hold that space and have that
Yes.
energy with that too. So yeah, you want to know, what's going to happen and help
Okay.
with that.
Awesome. So now we're going to talk about, those of you that were here, we're going to talk about the power of energy and the power of energy healing, and how, I mean, thank God Rhonda's fine, but we talked about the last show, we were just talking about how the heart this year is really important because we're in the year of the fire horse and fire and horse, and how the heart, people that have heart issues should definitely take care of their heart. And then Rhonda's little episode happened. I will share some of it. Yeah, we were talking. She has heart failure from before the show, and then we started talking. I don't know, a couple days after or whatever, and I knew she wasn't doing well. And yeah, so we'll talk a little bit about this because the power of energy, and how also you did some numbers and some funny stories too in the hospital. But first of all, I'm glad she listened to me because we were talking and I seriously didn't think that she was going to make it. And I've even reached out to my students. So I am a School Magical University where I teach what everything energy healings and readings and everything I've been doing. And it's a 6-month online course. And my students, I'm so proud of them. I worked on her first, and then I said, please work on her because, I don't know if she's going to make it. So we'll go to you. So then I was talking to you and you were telling me.
Well, I was telling you like I'll start with that Thursday before because there was something that you were like, okay, I found this other house. I'm like, Vickie, I'm telling you, like I don't have the first. Let me start with, I have a real adverse to Western medicine. I have had bad experience with Western medicine. That holistic medicine is what got me into having problems that Western medicine couldn't fix. Is what started my holistic career. I was a corporate trainer. I was huge. Like I had a big corporate job and all that kind of stuff. Thought I'd do that for my whole life. I have 2 master's degrees. People, people when they think you do massage or Reiki healing, like like you wouldn't possibly have an MBA. And so I have a real aversion because Western medicine has always made me worse. And when I found holistic medicine, oh my God, like that's just, and so the universe led me on that path. So that's the first thing. So you have to kind of know that for how I got so bad and then it makes the story kind of even funnier. So, and I have this wonderful acupuncturist who in 2013, I've had the same symptoms, swelling and whatever. And I went to this, sliding scale place for, the clinic or whatever. And the nurse is like, I think you have something with your heart. She said, I used to work for a cardiologist. And so she sent me to the cardiologist and he said, there's nothing wrong with you that losing weight won't fix. And I was like, well, piss on you, buddy. And of course he was like, if he turned sideways, he was super thin and did really nothing. And I was born with a congenital heart defect. Like I've had a heart defect my entire life. And he's like, well, I don't hear it. So it either healed or, whatever. And it probably did heal because I'd had holistic healing then, by that time. So then, I get on the plane and I go and I see my buddy that does acupuncture that I totally trust, who helped me get rid of cancer, like what you were talking about before the show, having the miraculous healing of energy stuff. And, I had 3 treatments and was better. And the diagnosis with congestive heart failure is 5 years or less. You might get 10, but it's 5 years or less, and the quality of your life sucks. And then I go along and I'm fine until 2019, and I feel like, something's just kind of a little off. And I went again to the same little clinic, but got a different practitioner who didn't, and my legs were swollen. I had chest pains. I had fluid retention. I thought I had bronchitis or pneumonia. And again, so lung issues. I told, I'm a heart issue. They tell me anytime I get sick, I have to get to the doctor because they don't want the infection to settle in the defect in my heart. And that's been brained into me since I was a kid. And she did not even listen to my heart. She didn't listen to my lungs. She didn't even physically touch me. And then she had to go on her little tirade about how, that she's the doctor, the nurse practitioner who spent money to get, her degree and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, no, I'm telling you, like, there's something really wrong. And they took my blood pressure, which was high, but that would have been typical too, right? And so, because of all the fluid and stuff and going. And so she goes, what you really need to do is lose weight. So there it is again. And I want to premise that I was thin my whole life until I had to take something that was a Western medicine thing for hormonal things that put all of this weight on me that then is hard to lose, right? So again, that Western medicine thing. So I'm like thinking, I've not been fat all my life, but also a month ago, I wasn't having chest pains or fluid in my face and lungs and feet. So I don't think just being fat is the issue. And I left there that day and my sister was with me and she goes, oh boy, because I said, I want to talk to a supervisor. So I called in a supervisor, but it wasn't a supervisor. I'm not stupid. Every smock has a different color. They sent in some little CNA, said, well, what's your, issue? I said, I'm leaving here, but I want it documented in my file that I have not been physically touched, my heart has not been listened to, and my lungs have not been listened to. And if I leave here and have a cardiac episode, I will hold this clinic responsible. So you either have the opportunity to have someone else come in here and at least give me the peace of mind that knows I'm not sick, or, whatever. So that also leads to this piece of where I was telling you, like, I didn't think I was sick by the time you're telling me. And so I left there. They made her come back in. And I was like, oh my God. And so she comes over and she listens and she goes, well, it's beating. And I said,
What a bee.
I said,
Ah,
I said, well, yeah, that's a good thing, right? I said, yeah. And I said, she goes, yeah, who knew you had a heart? And then here's, of course, where the numbers and the names.
sounds like she needs to be thrown out of the
Exactly.
hospital.
And her last name was Savage. So I thought there, and I left and I thought, she treated me like a savage, right? So there again is how this
Wow.
number thing happens, that you can't make this stuff up. And when we left there, my sister, and I was crying, and my sister was like, oh my God. So I got no diagnosis. And I left there and I told my
You
sister,
don't feel any better.
I will not go ever. I will be dead or unconscious and someone has
I
drugged
don't
me
blame
in
you.
before I ever go through the halls of Western medicine again. And the same thing then happened, like a little episode with a nosebleed, that I knew that I had this issue. And then I was just kind of thrown aside, like, it's not a big deal, blah, blah, blah. But it was, because I have a genetic defect. My blood doesn't
And
clot.
this happens a lot to a lot of people
It
too.
does,
So,
especially women. We're told that, like,
Mhm.
you're fat or you're overweight or, you have your blood pressure. And here's what's interesting is that, she's just like, well, your blood pressure's high, I'll give you a blood pressure med. And I'm like, no, I don't want that. So anyway, I left there. And then I thought, screw this. I'm going to figure out some way, get a pet sitter, whatever. Got on a plane. By this time, I had to go to a different doctor in Florida because my Chinese one from California, functional medicine doctor, had moved back to China. So I had another guy in Florida that I liked. And I got down there, again, one treatment, and I was worlds better. My ankles went from, like this big to like normal overnight. And so, and I probably think I was there a week and had maybe 3 treatments and came home. And again, no other problem until this happened 2026. So again, and I don't think I've been taking care of myself. Like, it just has been slowly happening with that.
Right.
So here we come up on this thing and I'm thinking, okay, now I have a problem because I don't have really the access to get to an Asian, I live in Iowa. There's nobody here that does Asian medicine. But I was using a local practitioner who was in another state that does functional medicine. But then there was a screw up and I couldn't get my heart things and I was doing fine. But then I ran out of the heart supplement and we couldn't get it. And then I got some kind of bronchial thing in November. So I was so sick the whole month of November and December with this upper respiratory thing. And of course, there's nothing that they're going to do. There's nothing they're going to give you. They're just going to tell you it's a virus, go home. So I'm doing it and treating it and I'm using my frequency machine and everything and it helped me string along. But I kept telling everybody and everybody was like, well, come on, let's go. If you got out of the house, you'd feel better. And I'm like, you guys, I can't even get my leg through my pants. Like, people were I'm like, it takes me 4 hours to take a shower just to get in the shower, rest, get out. Like, I was awful. And then I finally was like, okay, I'm going to go to the chiropractor. And so I had that set up before you had asked me about, my situation about this doing the numbers in Georgia. And I said, okay, I'm going to go to the chiropractor. And then he canceled on me. He got sick. Because here I am in like death's door, but I'm still like, okay, I'm going to do as most non-Western medicine as I can. And then my friend, and I also wasn't going to go back to that clinic or any doctor within that system, because they're going to read my report and it's going to say overweight, high blood pressure, refuse meds, blah, 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 blah. Like, they're not going to take me seriously. Lo and behold, a new free clinic. Now, I wasn't going there because it was free, but I was going there because it was a free clinic open to anybody without any.
That's amazing.
It is. They got a grant.
The universe was here.
Through this whole process, Vickie, the universe has been here. And they had this free clinic that opened. It had done a slight grand opening the Tuesday before. They weren't really seeing patients. So what happened was the chiropractor canceled on Thursday. He could only see me on Monday. The free clinic was Tuesday night. So I went to the chiropractor, but I talked to you on Thursday, and I'm like, well, I'm going to hold up. And I told you, what I said to Vickie was, I'm like, if you don't believe me, you scry into your crystal ball. Like, I'm telling you, look in your crystal. Like, I'm not kidding you. I'm really sick. I'm not avoiding you. I just don't have the energy to figure out the numbers. And see, at the time, I didn't know I had this CO2 poisoning. So I wasn't functioning
Right.
cognitively very well either.
Right.
So you're like telling me go to the ER, and I'm like, well, and I'm running the frequency, and I'm having people send me, and I'm like, well, I'm going to hold out till Monday. But there was a point where
Yeah, and I knew, I'm like, you need to go. I was seriously, I mean, I thought you were gonna die.
and so I held out till Monday, went to the chiropractor. He was so compassionate and understanding, and he was like, well, let's give you an adjustment, but I think I want to see you in a day or two. If you don't get any better, I said, well, should I go to the emergency? He goes, well, he said, but by then you guys had done a bunch of healing. So it wasn't like I was
Yes.
better, but I knew that I was improved. And so he saw, he's like, and I felt instant relief from the adjustment. But of course it didn't last very long because you move and you do whatever. And then, but I knew I was going to the free clinic. So then I felt like, I don't know if I should go. I'm like, I'm going to go to the free clinic. And I went in there, and see, they knew nothing about me. They didn't have access to my medical records.
Which is awesome.
It
What was the
is.
universe? Yeah.
And I told them the story. They're like, well, how long has this been going on? And I said, well, and it happened because the organization that's giving them the space for this free clinic is a church, and it's a fundamentalist Christian church that my friend goes to. They're giving them
Wow.
space for free, and all of the
Awesome.
doctors are volunteers for free. Like, it's amazing, right? So I go in there and I said, like, I'm just not feeling very well. I'm worried that, because the last few times I've had this checked out, they've told me it's because I just need to lose weight. I'm afraid if I go to the ER, they're going to charge me this $200 thing that they charge you because you've gone after hours, and you didn't really need to be there. And so I just like to have, like, what you think I need to do, because I would feel better if somebody said, either the chiropractor or a Western medicine person said, we're sending this person to the ER. I felt like I would get more credibility or less flack than me just walking in off the street and saying, I think I need to be seen. Because let's face it, a lot of doctors have their ego, and it's about, I don't care what Dr. Google said, or
But I think this is like weird because I think where you live has a lot to where I live in Sarasota, I've never heard such a thing ever,
really.
ever. Oh, yeah, ever. I mean, and mind you, we have a lot more people down here and stuff like that. So I just think it's very interesting on how all that portraying. But, I'm glad you went to the emergency room. I'm glad you did because you were so bad. But I also want you to share too because my client, first I did a healing on her, and we do them remotely. Those of you that don't understand, I've been doing remote healings for 28 years, and everything is energetically. And I also want you to back up to understand how people manifest for other people is, I got grief. We all got, first thing I did is I said, Rhonda, you're in grief, like major grief. And the grief manifested. And where does it manifest to? Obviously in the heart. And you just recently lost your two dogs. I think you're something else.
So from 2015, I lost my mom in 2007. From 2015, my significant other committed suicide.
Oh, I didn't even know that.
I've lost 8 pets. I lost my dad. I lost a best friend. I have been robbed 3 times from my businesses, so that was a loss. I've been robbed 3 times at my house, so more loss. I then lost
There's a lot
my
of loss.
space, my office space, and that, so that was, the pandemic came along, and I lost a lot of clients and had to reinvent myself. But I also then lost, like, that whole persona of who you are, right? I lost, like, there's been the other kind of,
So
like,
there's a
but I
lot of
lost
grief.
my dad, and I'm still not over that. Like, I miss
You
him
need to
every day.
allow that to come up. But that's a part of healing is allowing the tears out and allowing this. And other people need to know this too, because when you hold it inside, it affects your heart.
And then 2 years ago, pretty much, I'm going to have to look back on the calendar, but I think pretty much the day that I got sick was almost the same day, 2 years to the day that my younger sister ended up in the hospital. And then she died the end of February 2 years ago. And she's 5 years younger than me. And she came to my house for home hospice, which is what I insisted on doing. And so there's been all this loss, and I know that I've not dealt with it, because you just have to suck it up and keep, whatever it is. There's been financial, all this stuff. And then, you had done healing like a while back, and, it was grief, and I'd had other people say, yeah, it's grief. But, here's the thing too. These are unexpressed tears, and what did my body do? It held on to fluids. So all of this extra fluid is tears in my body that I need to get rid of.
That you need to allow to
I
come out.
do. And I also
Yeah.
want to back up and say two things: that on December 21st, we switched into Chinese medicine, kidney bladder meridian. So we went from lung and colon, which was when I was sick in November and December, to then the bladder kidney, which is fluids again, right? And so all of that is going on right now. And when this all came to a head was the Fire Horse Day, because that's when you said to me, like, it's Fire Horse Day, where it's a Lunar New Year's the 17th. Get to the ER now, like.
Yes.
And it took somebody who was not like you. I had to have that psychic to intuition person who was like understood that this, to tell me, to get it through my thick skull, you're sick, damn it, like, go, like, you're the one that was
We
talking
just
about how it's
chatted
gonna
about
affect your
this.
heart,
Yes.
And
Yeah.
so then when I got to the ER, they were kind of rude. They, I guess, hadn't gotten the message that I was headed there. And then I still came home and like got my stuff and packed my bag and got my computer and all this stuff. And my friend was like, how in the hell from Utah? She's like, I can't believe you had the wherewithal. Like, you took your guardian angel spray and your angel this and your headache oil. And I'm like, well, I wasn't going to be without it, like, anyway. So we get to the ER and they're like, well, you have to fill out this paperwork before you can go back. And I mean, I'm just like loose and like whatever. And so the lady, and they wheeled me in a wheelchair, and I'm sitting in the back, and finally they're like, well, you're taking too long. I'm like, I have to catch my breath. And so the lady came over and put the respirator, the thing that checks your respiration. Well, most people have 99 to 100. They don't want it to go below 99. Mine was at 17. I mean, excuse me, 71. It was the 17th that I went in. So it's the 17th of February. My oxygen rate is down to 71. And then they roll me. I'm paying attention as they're.
It's on the day of the Fire Horse.
It was on the day of the Fire Horse, and as they're all of a sudden, when they see it's at 71, they're like, "Stop talking!" They put this mask over me, and they take off running. My friend goes, "It was like a scene on ER." She's like, they take off running down the hallway, like they're running and they're wheeling you in there, and they're like immediately, and they're doing all of these things and everything. And I don't really know what's going on, but I'm conscious enough to see that I'm in room 17, and I'm like, oh my God.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I told you this is a really.
Yeah, so now, so tell us about all the number stuff too. So yeah, we know you're fine. I mean, thank God, because she was not, and I really I really thought she was. I didn't know if you were going to make it or not. Actually, I never even told you this. When I work on people, because I've worked on one of my friends in the past too, that was, she actually had cancer. Like, she just came in with kidney cancer, and I was going to work on her energetically. This was 5, 6 years ago, and she told me stop. She's like, no, I'm going to die, and she wanted to die. So we all have our choice, and those, you don't know this because I didn't share this yet. So I went into Rhonda, and I'm working on her energetically again, and I saw your dad there, and you were still making up your decision. And this must be when the first night you were there, because you're pretty groggy. And the other thing too, I want to let people know, when you do painkillers or you do something like that, especially because you were in oxygen too, that can bring you out of your body, and it can actually make you choose not what you wouldn't think you would choose, because you're not here, right? But when I first worked on you, I didn't know. I told my students, I said, I don't know. Her decision is still unmade. So I'm glad that you chose.
And so that was Tuesday night. And then they were able to get me on oxygen and get my oxygen rates up above 90. And then they left me. And of course, at that time, we didn't know about the CO2 poisoning. And so it was so funny, because I told my friend, every time they tell me to lose weight, and I should wear like a CPAP and do a sleep study. And I've done a sleep study. And I told my friend, I'm like, whatever you do, don't let them give me a sleep study. And I don't want to wear a stupid BiPAP mask. So all of a sudden I get there, and it's Wednesday night, because I was just on oxygen from Tuesday night to Wednesday day, still groggy, in and out of it, whatever, was conscious enough that they had put me in room 215, which also added up to an 8. So 1 + 7 is an 8. So we had it was a 17th, which is an 8. The room in the emergency room was an 8. Now my room upstairs adds up to an 8. It's like less than some money. Like, okay, that figures. And so I'm laying there. And so then like, I guess I got like totally out of it. And I don't remember a whole lot, but I remember these people like telling them like, I'm not wearing that mask. No, I don't want that mask. I don't want to wear a BiPAP mask. Like still had no idea how sick I was. And so here I am. I didn't know they lost me twice. And I don't know if I had told you that, but they lost me twice.
You didn't tell me that.
And
But that's probably when I was in your energy and you were making a decision.
and the thing is that to back up, when my dad was in hospice in 2015, he was dying. He was passing and whatever, and he was in his 90s, and he's kind of a stubborn old fart. And so he was laying in the bed and he couldn't even move his head, and he's like, oh, turn off that light. Like, what is that light? Like, turn the Rhonda. There was no lights on. I mean, there was no light that was shining. And then he's like, well, who are all these people? Like, what are all these people doing here? And I said, well, I think they're here to help you. Help me what? I said, well, he goes, well, what do you mean? I'm like, go to the other side, go to heaven. He goes, what? And he was talking, but he couldn't lift his head or anything. And he said to me, he goes, well, what do you mean? And he goes, oh, well, there's my dad. And he hadn't seen him for 70 some years, and he's like, I haven't seen him for, and so I knew, and I had seen him, he had this thing, and I was at peace with it. Anyway, so then he goes, well, I don't understand. And I said, well, Dad, you're dying. He sat straight up out of the bed and he looked at me and he goes, not today. and he goes, you might go first. And I'm like, me? And I'm like, oh my God. And he goes, yeah. And I go, from when? He goes, from all your fooling around. And I'm like, okay. And then he laid back down, and the old fart lived over 2 more years, and he got up out of the bed and got better. And of course I was doing healing stuff too. So he's stubborn, right?
The choice.
So here I am in this thing Wednesday night, and I hear them going, we're losing her. Like, and they didn't shock me because it wasn't necessarily that the heart stopped, but apparently they did like chest compressions and they were trying to knuckle me. And I only know that because I was sore and they told me that the next day. So I was there and I'm like floating, and I could feel myself floating, like I could just floating. And I hear them saying, she's dying, we're losing her, we got to do something or whatever. And then I came back the first time and they said, oh, she's back. And I was still arguing about, wearing the mask because I didn't understand. And they said, well, we've got her back. And then I don't really remember exactly what happened next, but then all of a sudden they lost me again. And they said something about, you need this mask. And I'm like, explain to me why I need this mask. And so the next thing I know, then I left again, and I just again felt this floating, and I felt like I was floating on this like square thing in the cosmos.
Sounds like you're just being very stubborn and difficult because you don't want to wear the mask. So then you chose like, no, I'm just going to die.
Well, I didn't understand it. But I didn't understand it was life saving, right?
Right.
So
No, I know.
I didn't want to admit I had sleep apnea, is what I thought they were trying to tell me.
Right, I know.
But I didn't know I had the CO2 poisoning. So I'm floating, and then I hear him say, she's dying. And I hear this voice, that says, not today.
Wow.
And it wasn't like, no, I'm not going to die today, or, oh, I'm going to choose to live, or, oh, maybe I better go back. No, it was my dad.
Wow.
And then I felt this big,
that just got me chills.
Yeah, I felt this like big push, and I just went poof. And they told me later on, they were like, you were so out of it, but then all of a sudden it was like, all of a sudden you just woke up and you were there, and they were like, oh, wow, she's back. And then they said to me, the nurse said to me, you are dying, and if you do not wear this mask, you will die. Do you have anything to live for? I said, my dogs. And they said, do you want to live? And I said, yes. So then I said, I'll wear it. And they didn't think they could get me to wear it for 15 minutes. I think I wore it 20 hours straight. But it had to be there for me to have the air to clean out the CO2 poisoning. Because, see, they hadn't understood ahead of time, what was going on. And I was so confused. I couldn't understand why wearing this stupid mask. And to kind of give a little bit, too, is that I had taken a scuba diving class, and I didn't realize I had claustrophobia. And I ended up I couldn't do the scuba diving. I took the class, but then I got claustrophobic from wearing the mask. So I think that was the
there's a lot of that going on.
Right,
yeah,
right.
Sense. Yeah.
So, yeah.
Wow, what a story. And now you're here.
And my blood pressure was so high, going in. They said that they thought they were going to lose me from a stroke. Then this 2 episodes, and then with all this fluid in the heart failure, and then the blood pressure. And I told myself I'm not going home on any meds. I almost didn't get released yesterday because my blood pressure was too low, because I've drain the
Wow.
fluid and, all that kind of stuff. So it wasn't, and I know, and for listeners out there, find yourself a good functional medicine doctor or somebody that you can trust. Because if I had listened to, you're too fat and take these high blood pressure meds, it would have just kicked the can down the road and I would have found something else.
And working with it energetically, emotionally, like all of it comes together, or it's going to come to a head like it came together for you.
And also kudos to one of your students, because you sent me a screenshot that your student also saw my dad standing behind me. And I'd had lunch back, I don't know, maybe in December, with another friend who we knew each other in high school, and she's gone off to be a healer, but our paths finally crossed after 40 years. And she said to me, she goes, your dad's beside you and supporting you. So that was a couple months ago. So then it was like, so I know he's
Your
here.
dad.
I mean, it's just, and I have to deal with that because I miss him so much. And I'm mad at
Right.
my sister, little shit. She's supposed to be taking care of me, like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just, so there's a lot of issues I have to work on with it.
Right.
So I think that everything's
Emotionally
going
and
to come to a
emotionally with
head.
the heart.
Yeah.
But at least now you're on the healing aspect of this.
Yes.
And yeah,
Yes.
and I, yeah, and I mean, all of that, like such a amazing story and a miracle story. And before we go to, share the story you talked about the big B, the B you had to deal with, the lady that wasn't very nice,
Darcy with an I. There was a couple of them.
AKA bitch.
First, I want to premise that I did the numbers of every person that was going to work on me because I wanted to know what to expect from them. So this is the level that I take it. And then but I approach it from a little different standpoint. And then I would started doing for the nurses and the aides. I'm like, hey, I do this thing because I did my thesis on name letter similarity, which is true, and how it can affect your personalities and the personalities of the letter in your name. Would you like for me to tell you what it means? And they're like, yeah. So then the next thing I know, first I couldn't get any help with aides coming in. Then all of a sudden the aides are coming in because they all can I help you? Like, can I help you? Like, they wanted me to do their name. So it kind of became this really sort of empowering and uplifting thing that there was so many people that were curious. So that was cool. But then I'd had this really bad experience with a physical therapist who I hadn't had. She'd come to see me when I was in the height of all of this CO2 confusion. So I don't even know how she treated me then. But so the thing is that, and I told myself I'm not going to a nursing home. So now I'm like night and day, like different from where she was on that Wednesday to now finally it's like a week later. I was in the hospital 2 weeks for people to know. Like this was really, like Vickie's not kidding when she says
Yeah,
how serious it is.
it was
So,
bad.
so we fast forward and now I am like up going without a monitor. I'm still wearing oxygen, right? And walking to the bathroom and stuff by myself and, things they made me use a walker for protocol. And so the doctor had come in and my cousin had just shared a story about her sister, my cousin, like back in December, it had a similar thing where she had the flu and ended up but she had to go to a nursing home for rehab for 30 days. So when my hospitalist came in, I said, am I going to have to, I'm like, you're not going to make me do that. And she goes, no, why would I make you? You're doing fine. Like it's a miracle. And he used that word. It's like, it's a miracle how much better you're doing. And I want to say, I think I'd have to figure it out that they said that I lost somewhere around 60 to 70 pounds of fluid.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's like another person.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
Wow.
how bad it was. So he said, no, you're doing great. And so this lady comes
That's
in.
that's a lot of grief.
Yeah, it is. And
Hmm.
and so this lady comes in and
Years.
she's not the fun loving physical therapist that I'd had all the other days, right? And I don't remember her from the day that I had the CO2 thing. So she's standing outside listening. She's listening to this whole conversation. So she comes in and the first thing you can just feel how sometimes people are, And so she says to me, I said, well, you ready to walk? And I'm like, yeah. And today we're going to do the test to see if you can walk because we have stairs and blah, 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 and, whatever. And so she's just really belligerent. And I was to that point where I was feeling better, but grumpy, right? And I was like, okay, just put up with it. I went to the bathroom and she starts in on me while I'm peeing, mind you. Well, I just want to let you know that my recommendation is that you go to a nursing home. At least you go to a nursing home for 100 days of rehab, blah, 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 blah. And I'm thinking to myself, like, well, I'm not going to no damn nursing home. I'm just not. I would have rather died than go to it. And I told her that. I'm like, and don't call psych on me because I mean it. Like, I should have just died then. And so, but anyway, that was much later in the conversation. So I just put up with her shit. And then I came to come out and it took me 2 days to get my bed adjusted to where it didn't hurt my tailbone. 2 days. It was just perfect. And there was a chair that was next to the bed. So she said, well, let's rest before we walk you. And I said, okay, I'm going to sit in the chair. And she goes, no, I want you to sit on the bed. And I'm like, well, I'm not going to sit on the bed because it took me 2 days to get it perfectly adjusted. And if I have to flatten it to sit on it, which I would have had to, then it's going to be impossible to get it right again. She proceeds to go over, flips up the thing, and flattens the bed. Okay. And I'm like, oh my God. So I'm still trying to bite my tongue, right? And I'm like, but it pissed me off. And she goes, now you can come over here and sit on the bed. And I was already in the chair. And so I got up, and then she goes, and I don't want you to sit on this side of the bed. I want you to sit on the other side of the bed. Oh my God. So I sit there, and she goes, well, I don't think you should go home because you have steps and you have 2 steps to get into your house. And I'm like, I have 1 step. Well, it says here, I said, and then I walked 12 feet through my porch to get to the next step. She's like, well, you haven't been doing steps. I'm like, I went to Applebee's 2 hours before I went to the medical clinic, and they have 5 steps to get to the booth. Like, I've been doing steps. And so they just asked me anyway. So she goes, well, let's see how far you get. I've got a chair and we'll see if you make it. But so the whole time, so finally when I sat on the other side of the bed, because she said we weren't leaving until I sat on the other side of the bed. And I said, okay, you've got to stop bullying me and you've got to stop bossing me. And you've got to stop telling me I'm going to a nursing home, because I'm not. And I said, we'll walk. So she told me she had a chair just around the corner. Well, she lied. The chair was just next to the steps, but I couldn't see the steps, but I could see the chair. So she made me walk, and I found out I walked 50 feet. Now, before this, Vickie, I told you stories where I had a chair every 2 or 3 foot in my house to sit on, to rest enough to get to my kitchen.
Right.
So this was huge, 50 steps. So then there's the chair, and she goes, well, there's the chair, but the steps are just on the other side of the pole if you think you can make it. Because she was shocked, but she's still telling me nursing home. And she goes, I'll move the chair. I'm like, I can make it around the corner. And I get there, and there's 5 steps. So I sit down. She goes, why don't you rest? And she said, now I'm pissed, right? Because I'm just like, I've had enough of her. And she says to me, and I didn't see her name tag. She had just told me her name was Darcy. So she says to me, well, let's see if you can climb the steps. I said, do you want me to do 2, or what do you want me to do? She goes, well, how would you do it? Would you come down backwards? Or I'm like, I don't know. You want me to just do them all? Well, I don't think you're capable of doing them all. Well, now the challenge is on, right? I'm feeling good enough, like, and I am 33. I'm going to show this bitch. So I get in, I grab, she goes, do you have handrails at home? And I'm like, yes. I go, plus they have handrails at Applebee's. So I go in, and I'm like, and I just boom, boom, boom. Like, I just went up the stairs like it was nothing. I'm like, you ready for me to come down? And she's like, yeah. And I'm like, so you want me to sit down? And so I sat down. I'm like, okay. I'm like, how many times are we going to do this? Well, just once. But I still had to listen to her come all the way back bitching at me how I needed this rehab and it would be better than going home. And she goes, people, and I said, no, people don't get better when they go to the nursing home. They die. They lose their ability to thrive. I'm like, you are just too bossy for me. So I was upset, and I told him, I'm like, I want to talk to the doctor. I don't ever want her again.
I don't blame you.
So then I'm sitting there in the bed, and I'm thinking to myself, Darcy, what would she be? Darcey comes up to a 1. Could be that, because, they're kind of intimidating. Darcy, or that Darcy made her a 7. No, she's not a 7, because she'd be passive and spiritual. And Darcey, yeah, that'd make her a 1. Well, she could be that was a bossy. Well, Darcie, still makes her a 1. So I'm like, Darci. Oh, that makes her an 8. Oh my God, she is totally an 8, like totally an 8. And that's a really, because 8s are structured. Like, you can't put the glass of water here. It has to go exactly where they expect. You can't move it 1 inch. And so I'm definitely not going, oh, it's got to be Darcy with an I. So then in comes the occupational therapist, and I'm like, how does Darcy spell her name? And I go, it's a Darci, which is an unusual spelling. Most people you would be Darcy. Right. And I go, she goes, how did you know that? So then I go through my little spiel, like, well, I do this name, letter, similar, whatever. And the lady goes, oh my God. Well, what does Jen mean? So then I'm like telling her, like, because I'm like, okay, let me describe Darcy. I'm like, an 8 means this, blah, 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 blah. But she goes, I can't comment, but I can tell you there's not a single person who works with her that would disagree with what you just said. So then she thought it was funny. So then I did her name, and she was just like, because she was an 11.
So what is a Jen? A Jen, because I know we have a lot of Jens.
Jen, Jen, would be an 11. And when you're Jennifer, the traditional spelling, you are a 9, which is about service and helpful and friendly. And this Jen only got assigned to me because the Chris lady that I normally do had to go home or was stuck with another person. And Chris spelled hers Kris, which is completely a different kind of spelling. So she was a 3. So she was all about fun and laughter and everything. So then the funny thing was, I was like, wow, that's just really exact. And by the time I left, even my doctor was like, oh my God, that's so insightful. But of course, I didn't tell him that there was numerology stuff involved. It was involved with letter similarities, and there is a
Right.
scientific side to all this. So anyway, the big thing was that the Darcy with an I. So yeah, so don't underestimate that when
So,
you're getting
so some
quality
other
sleep.
Darcys with an I. Not all are like as bitchy as this one I
No,
just
but they would
gave.
make better. They would make better accountants than they would.
Right,
They're bankers. Things that deal with money, that things that deal with having to have everything, every I
right.
dotted and T crossed. But they're not good with necessarily doing people stuff.
Right. And I think it's also how interesting too, because you said Jennifer and Jen, and how some people might realize if shift that or change that. Just like my name is Vickie. I was
Right?
born that way. I'm not Victoria. I'm not Victoria at all. And I know Vicky's, there's a whole bunch. Yeah, I just thought of that. Vicky's, there's VICKI, there's VICKI. I think Vicky's a five, right? I think I'm a
Yeah.
five.
The way you spell yours. Yeah.
Yeah. And what are fives again?
Risk,
Change.
travel, variety, change, courage, freedom, trailblazers.
Yeah, that's me.
And
Free spirit.
if you do Vicky with an I, just VICK,
Yeah.
5 and 4 is a 9. So that's more about service, at the global level. So that would have been a good vibration for you too. But it's just like the difference between Rob and Robert, or Bob. If you're Robert, you're a 33. If you're Bob, you're a
Oh,
1. So, and just to let people know, whatever's on your birth certificate, it's circulating in the background. It's like that software that's working
it's
on in
always
the
there.
background. So you're not going to lose it just because you changed, not be Robert instead of Bob. But it will change. It will change how people perceive you and how you live your life if you go by a different name, or whatever. Even if your name was, Chandler, and you decided to go by Chip, it doesn't even have to be a cut down of what your normal name would be. It could
Right.
be a complete.
Right.
So yeah,
Yeah.
it all
No,
takes
I think
effect,
that's
all of it.
interesting for people.
Yeah,
And it's cool how like your whole experience and how just I think it was great to share all this and how healing happens, miracle happens is all tied with energy and numbers and just everything. And the year of the fire horse. I mean, we just did the whole big thing on this and now you're healing. And I think you needed that big wake up moment
I did.
and upheaval of release, because that's what I feel that, eclipses are about releasing. So this is upheaval of release of grieving. You had to have that, something come in here to help you release the grief.
And if I could share just one more story about my dad.
Yeah.
So when I was a child, because this isn't the first near death experience that I've had. When I was a child, I had my tonsils removed. And again, I told you that I had this. They didn't realize I'd had this von Willebrand's disease, which is a clotting disorder. And nobody really took it serious because it's like a form of mild hemophilia, but usually women don't have hemophilia. And this is a slightly different thing. My blood will clot. It just won't clot in a normal time. It takes 14 times longer than the average
Wow.
person. So you have a chance that you could, die from hemorrhaging or whatever. So they didn't know that and going into surgery. And I had my tonsils out and I kept telling them I was tasting blood, tasting blood, tasting blood. That's normal. Anyway, they had to rush me back to emergency surgery in the middle of, because I finally just had all this hemorrhage of stuff that just came up and blood everywhere. And I remember it. And when I got there, and this would have been 1970. So this is back, I was 9 years old, which numerically deals with sort of that transition time, right? 9 is the endings.
Right.
And
Right.
so I was 9. I was getting ready to turn, it was 1971, but it was in February, not March. So I was getting ready to turn 10, which would have been new beginnings. So I was right on that cusp. It was February, March, I was going to turn 10. I was 9. So I go in, and my sister had hers out too. We were in the same room, and she didn't have any problems. But they had to rush me back to surgery at in the middle of the night, like 4 a.m. They even had to call, because my blood type was rare, they had to call in a blood donor special to the blood bank to have blood. And I remember floating above my body. Like I remember, I can see the whole thing. I can see them working on me. Like they're like, talking but I'm 9, so I don't quite understand everything that's going on. And the next thing I know is that I see that I'm at this bridge. And it's like this little stream, and I crossed the bridge, I crossed the stream to go over, and apparently I went into heaven. And when I got there was this little shepherd boy who met me, and it was Jesus as a child, and took me then, and as we walked, he became Jesus. Now again, I experienced Jesus because that's who I knew as my religious
Right.
affiliation. So you
Right.
could have,
Right.
I'm not saying that you only see Jesus if you go to heaven, I want to make that clear. But I saw Jesus, and as we walked, we communicated, but it was all telepathic. It was not, It was not this conversation kind of thing. It
That's
was
how
all
I, yeah, how I
telepathic.
channel. Right.
And so, so as we walked, and then we come over, and he had me sit down and sit on his lap, and he was talking, and he said to me telepathically, like, I want you to come and feast from the table of wisdom and knowledge. And it was this long table, this long wooden, beautiful table, and there was nothing on it physically, but it was everything of all of the information of the universe that was on this table.
Very
So
cool.
it was like, take what you want, like a smorgasbord. And so I like, all of a sudden I'm like gathering everything up, like I take it all back. And then they said, like, you have to go back. And I'm like, but I don't want to go back. And they're like, well, you have to go back. And I said, well, I don't want to go back. So this was kind of like my thing. And they said, let me show you what will happen if you don't go back. And so I saw that it would have killed my dad, that he would have just withered into nothing. And then they said, and he was an electrician. So he wired, and he was one of the original electricians, like brought wiring to all the farms in rural Iowa before there was electrical to there. Anyway, and they said, we want you to see, by you leaving now and extinguishing his fire, because it would kill him, kill his light, how many other people that would affect. And there was like all of these like little lights, like houses like that,
Wow.
right? And they all just disappeared. And it was like, and they're
Wow.
like, you have to go back, because if you don't go back, and now I know my dad wouldn't have made his purpose, but I didn't understand all that stuff as a child.
Wow.
So then I come back and I'm immediately doing numbers, and like I know how to do numbers, and I knew how to do all these things, and I do this healing stuff. And my parents were very cool with it. Like, we were a very telepathic family and stuff.
Very
But
cool.
but they said, I don't think you should be sharing this. And of course in 1971 you weren't. I didn't even want to share it in 2021. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, it took a lot to get that, and I do have that published now as in a book of whatever. But yeah, so I saw that, and so I think in some ways I've been struggling that, like, my purpose. And so for a long time I thought even God didn't want me as a child. Like, I'm thinking even God didn't want me. And so, because like I had to come back, right? And then I felt like, I think after my dad died, on some level, I think maybe I felt like there was no more purpose for me. You see what I mean? And so
Right.
by him sending me back 2 weeks ago, that tells
Mm.
me, he's telling me like, no, you've got a lot more that
You
you
gotta
need
go
to do,
back. Yeah.
so
And
yeah, so
it's acceptance of the gifts and acceptance of and this will be a whole nother show I think we need to do because I am the medium psychic and religion was a big thing. I've been doing this 28 years and the acceptance of your gifts, especially when there's naysayers out there and you live in the Midwest and not saying all Midwest is up and coming now, but I was in Ohio, the same kind of thing, very, very Bible Belt. And so then you start to fear your gifts and you start to reject them. And then that's what you're going to attract those people because you care or you're looking for their approval. And so it's all about going back to yourself and saying, this, I have this gift and obviously it's from God. So it's for me to here to share. Right. And once you accept it and don't care what other people think, you're not gonna when you speak up and speak your voice and your truth, then you're going to attract that too. So because I know that'll be a whole nother show because I know you've always been kind of in and out of and yours is numerology. I see dead people. So that's
really,
even more
well,
religious shit.
yeah, yeah, that is. I do want to tell you too that numbers based. So one of the things I like to tell people to do is look up your birth date in the Bible. So I googled chapter 30
Oh
20.
wow, very
And
cool.
one of them, and I don't remember which book it is because I read all of them and I didn't specify a book. I just wanted to know. And I tell people to do that. And you can do your house address too to see. So here's to share. So my birth date is 320 and whatever, I can't remember what Bible chapter it is, but it says it is when Jesus comes and knocks on the door to feast with you. So
Oh my God, how cool.
yeah. And then
All right, we're gonna leave people. That's awesome. That's awesome
my
to
house
leave
number
people to do
is
that.
my house number is 425. So I did the same thing, whatever chapter 4, verse 25, and one of them comes up to, if you've been given spiritual gifts, and if you don't use them, you will lose them.
Wow. See,
Yeah.
that's what I just said, how we have to we'll do a whole nother show on this because I feel like that's your life lesson, which you don't want to do that again. It sounds like you're coming out.
Yeah.
So thank you. This was an
Yeah.
awesome show. Thank you. My phone's getting ready to go dead, so I
Okay.
have to
Okay.
close it off here. But lots of great information. We have the eclipse. We have so much great stuff. And Rhonda, if people need to find you to book a reading or anything that you can help with so many different things, the calendar and all that too is available. I'll post it underneath here too, and it'll be on my website also. But where to get you?
RhondaReif.com. And from there, you can find
Spell
me.
it for people.
RhondaReif.com. And you
Yeah,
can find
right.
me through Facebook. I have links on there that'll connect
You
you
can reach
whichever
out to me.
way. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, thank you. And I'm
Thank
so
you.
happy you're
Yes.
awesome.
Oh
You're
my God.
alive and everything's good. And I'm glad you listened to me in the very
I am
beginning.
too.
So I'm
But
so glad.
see, it took somebody that was the farthest thing you could get from Western medicine to kick me in the ass to convince me that I really needed
Yeah.
to
And
do
if
it.
I tell somebody anything, like if I see a red flag, it's serious. So I'm glad you listened
Yeah.
because I can only share, can't make you listen, but I know
That's
you
right.
did. And I'm glad you chose to stay here too.
Well, thank
All
you.
right. It was awesome. Thank you for
Thank
being
you.
on my show. Have a
Okay.
beautiful day. All right. Bye bye.